Have you ever kept something so deeply hidden that even you forgot it was there? Maybe it was a childhood moment, a regret, a feeling you never said out loud. It's like a room in your soul you locked years ago and threw away the key. You moved on, or at least you thought you did. But here's what Carl Jung believed. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Jung called these hidden parts of ourselves the shadow, the emotions, impulses, and memories we deny, suppress, or disown. Not because they're evil, but because we weren't ready to face them. And so they went underground into the unconscious. But the problem is, what you bury doesn't disappear. It whispers. It leaks out in the way you react, the way you push people away, or the way you sabotage yourself without even realizing it. Maybe you've wondered why certain patterns keep repeating, why you feel triggered by things that shouldn't bother you, why success feels scary or love feels unsafe. Jung would say, look at your shadow, look at what you've hidden. In this video, we're going to dive into the deepest personal truth you've been avoiding and how it might be the invisible force controlling your decisions, your relationships, and even your sense of self-worth. Because here's the paradox: the more you hide your shadow, the more power it has over you. But the moment you begin to understand it, even just a little, you start reclaiming your life. So take a breath. You don't have to face everything at once. But maybe, just maybe, it's time to turn the light inward. Let's explore why your deepest secret isn't just a memory. It's a mirror. Have you ever reacted so strongly to something and later thought, why did that trigger me so deeply? Carl Jung would likely answer with one word: shadow. In Jungian psychology, the shadow represents the parts of ourselves we've hidden on purpose or unconsciously, because at some point they were labeled bad, weak, or unacceptable. These aren't just small flaws. They're the deeper emotions and memories we've suppressed: shame, fear, rejection, rage, insecurity, even grief we never gave ourselves permission to feel. But here's the paradox. The more we suppress these parts, the more they control us. Jung famously said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Let that sink in. The things we don't want to face. They run the show from behind the curtain. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine someone who's deeply afraid of being abandoned. Maybe it traces back to childhood, being left alone emotionally or physically. Now, as an adult, that same person may act cold, distant, or push others away preemptively. Why? Because their shadow whispers, if they get close, they might leave you. Better leave first. The outside world sees someone guarded or emotionally unavailable, but beneath the surface is a scared child just trying not to get hurt again. That's the power of the shadow. It's sneaky. It doesn't scream. It shapes your personality, your choices, your relationships, without you realizing it. And the longer it remains unacknowledged, the more it reinforces your patterns. So why does Jung call this powerful? Because once you see your shadow, you begin to reclaim your freedom. You stop being a puppet pulled by strings you never saw. You begin to respond instead of react. You move from unconscious survival to conscious healing. And that's where real transformation starts, not in pretending to be perfect, but in recognizing what you've hidden and choosing to meet it with compassion. So I want to ask you, what's one part of yourself you've pushed away because it felt too much, too dark, or too painful to deal with? Could that be the very part of you longing to be seen, not judged? Stay with me, because in the next part of this video, we'll look at the specific secrets people hide and why revealing them to the wrong person can break something inside you. Have you ever buried a part of yourself so deeply that even you forgot it was there? Maybe it was a memory that hurt too much. Maybe it was a truth about who you really are, or maybe it was a feeling, shame, rage, grief that felt too ugly to let into the light. Carl Jung believed that what we suppress doesn't disappear, it doesn't dissolve, it waits. And while it waits, it shapes our emotions, our behavior, and even our destiny. In psychology, this is called repression. It's one of the mind's most primal defense mechanisms. When we experience something painful or unacceptable, the subconscious tries to protect us by pushing it out of conscious awareness. It's like sweeping glass under a rug. You don't see the shards, but one wrong step and it still cuts you. Over time, these hidden truths can pile up into what Jung calls the unconscious. And instead of healing, we unknowingly build a life around our wounds. But repression doesn't work alone. There's denial, pretending something didn't happen or that it doesn't matter. There's projection, assigning our own feelings to others. And then there's displacement, redirecting our emotions to a safer target. Let me paint a real-world picture. Someone who never felt truly accepted by their parents might grow up thinking they've moved on. But without processing that pain, they may start feeling intense jealousy toward a sibling or unconsciously sabotage their own relationships when things feel too safe, too good. Why? Because deep inside, they still believe they don't deserve unconditional love. That's not just emotional baggage, that's a psychological time bomb. You might even recognize this pattern in yourself or in someone close to you. The friend who's constantly critical of others may be deflecting their own self-judgment. The partner who withdraws during conflict may be reliving a childhood where emotions were punished. The colleague who always needs control. Maybe they once felt helpless and vowed never to feel that way again. Jung believed that these patterns aren't random. They're symptoms of the soul's unfinished work, and left unexamined, they become loops we live inside without knowing we're trapped. So what's the cost of suppression? It's more than just stress. Repressed truths often manifest as emotional instability, chronic anxiety or depression, passive-aggressive behavior, addictive tendencies, difficulty forming deep, authentic connections. And yet, the world rewards suppression. Stay strong. Don't overthink it. Just move on. But moving on without processing is not healing. It's avoidance dressed up in resilience. So here's the truth no one teaches us. The more you run from something inside you, the more power it has over you. And eventually, it will find a way to be heard, whether through your body, your relationships, or your emotional health. But here's the good news. What was buried can be brought into the light. What was hidden can become integrated. Jung didn't say you need to confess everything to everyone. He said that you need to become conscious of it yourself. Because once you see your shadow, it stops running the show. It's not about reliving trauma. It's about reclaiming the parts of yourself you left behind in the dark. So I want you to reflect on this for a moment. Is there a truth you've been hiding? Not because it's shameful, but because you were taught it was too much. Maybe it's time to sit with it. Not to fix it, not to explain it, just to witness it. Because awareness alone begins the healing. In the next section, we'll explore what happens when you try to share these hidden truths too early with the wrong people, and why even well-meaning advice can wound you further if your truth hasn't yet taken root within you. Stay with me. Let me ask you something quietly, something you don't have to answer out loud. What's the one thing you've never told anyone, not because it's illegal, not even because it's shameful, but because it feels dangerous, emotionally dangerous? Carl Jung believed that unspoken truths don't disappear, they deepen, and in their silence, they grow in power. These are not just thoughts. These are what Jung called psychic energy, emotions, desires, and fears that we suppress but which continue to live inside us. Let's break this down. You've probably had moments where you overreacted to something minor, a small criticism that stung like betrayal, a compliment that felt suspicious, a friend's success that triggered something you didn't want to admit. Those reactions weren't born in the moment. They were echoes of unspoken truths, secrets you buried but that didn't stay quiet. These secrets often come in four familiar forms: unprocessed guilt, that thing you wish you hadn't done, or that thing you didn't do when you had the chance; unacknowledged desire, a dream you gave up on, a feeling society said was too much, a hunger that still lives in the background, fear of failure or rejection, so deeply rooted that you avoid chances to succeed just to stay safe. Forbidden emotions, the anger you were told was bad, the sadness you were told to get over, the resentment you pretended wasn't there. You see, when we don't express or process these truths, they don't just disappear, they distort our perception. You might suddenly push people away, not realizing it's because deep down you don't trust anyone to stay. You might self-sabotage a career move, not because you're unqualified, but because a secret belief whispers, "You don't deserve this." Jung warned us that what is unconscious will direct our life, and we will call it fate. But the truth is, many of us aren't being guided by intuition or led by signs. We're being dragged by our unspoken wounds. The danger of secrets is not only that they stay hidden, it's that they act through us without our permission. Have you ever noticed a pattern that keeps repeating in your life? Same emotional outcome, different situation. You keep falling for emotionally unavailable people. You keep chasing validation at work, but never feel good enough. You keep avoiding conflict even when it means betraying your own needs. That's not coincidence, that's programming. The hidden parts of you are writing the script of your life. And what's worse, these patterns don't just affect how you act, they affect how you see. You might misinterpret kindness as manipulation. You might perceive love as a threat. You might mistake your own discomfort as someone else's hostility. Because secrets don't just sit inside you, they become your lens. And until you look at them directly, they color everything. So what can we do? Jung never said, "Tell all your secrets." He said, "Bring them into consciousness." That doesn't mean you need to confess everything to a friend or post it online. It means becoming radically honest with yourself. One powerful way to start. Ask, what am I afraid someone might find out about me, and why? Write it down. Not for anyone else, just for you. When you name the truth, it loses its grip. When you look at it without judgment, it begins to lose its charge. Because here's the beautiful irony. The things we think will destroy us often free us when faced. So what secret is running your life from the shadows? Not because you're weak, not because you're broken, but because you've never had the safety space or silence to sit with it. Maybe now's the time. There's a quiet power in facing what you've spent years running from. Carl Jung once said that our hidden parts, the shadows we suppress, aren't just leftovers from the past. They're active forces. And until we face them, they'll continue to make decisions on our behalf, silently shaping our lives. So what happens when we finally stop running? When we look into the shadow, something shifts. You reclaim control, not just over your habits or your emotions, but over the narrative of your life. Think about it like this. Imagine driving a car blindfolded with someone whispering directions in your ear. That's what it feels like when your subconscious pain Your secret fears, regrets, and suppressed truths are calling the shots. But when you face those truths, it's like taking off the blindfold. Suddenly, you're behind the wheel again. You're not being manipulated by reactions, you're responding with intention. Jung developed powerful tools to help people begin this process of reclaiming their inner lives. One of his core methods is something called active imagination. Here's how it works. You sit in stillness. You let an image or emotion rise from within, and instead of analyzing it or judging it, you engage with it. You ask it questions. You listen. You respond. You create a dialogue with the part of yourself that has been buried. It's not fantasy. It's not self-indulgence. It's integration. You're giving a voice to what was silenced. Another path, journaling. Not the Dear Diary kind, but a raw, honest conversation on paper. You ask yourself, what am I avoiding? What memory still stings after all these years? What do I keep doing that hurts me? And why you write without censorship, because in that vulnerability something magical happens, clarity begins to emerge. Sometimes what we discover is shocking, not because it's evil, but because it's been in the dark for so long. You might realize that your constant need to please others isn't kindness, it's fear. You might notice that your self-sabotage isn't laziness, it's a secret belief that you're unworthy. And in that moment of recognition, healing begins. There's also therapy, which Jung saw not as a place to fix yourself, but as a sacred space where your shadow could be seen without judgment, where you could say the unsayable, and someone would still stay. This is not about turning your pain into a performance. This is about honoring your pain enough to bring it into the light. Because here's the truth, what we hide grows heavier, but what we face becomes lighter. Let me ask you, what part of yourself have you been avoiding? That question isn't meant to make you feel guilty. It's meant to awaken you. You're not weak for having secrets. You're human. But when you decide to face those secrets not all at once, but with patience, gentleness, and honesty, you begin to rewrite the script of your life. You start noticing your triggers instead of becoming them. You start making conscious choices instead of automatic reactions. You stop handing over your power to a past that no longer deserves to run your present. The benefits of this journey. They're quiet, but profound. You gain self-awareness, not the kind you post about, but the kind that lets you sit with discomfort and not flinch. You begin to heal self-destructive patterns, those emotional loops you couldn't explain before suddenly make sense. And most importantly, you get to live a life that's authentically yours, not shaped by old wounds, but guided by conscious truth. So I'll leave you with this. You don't need to tell the world your secret, but you owe it to yourself to stop hiding it from you. Because when you stop fearing the shadow, you step into the light, not as a perfect person, but as a whole one. And wholeness. That's where peace lives. How do you know when a secret, especially one buried deep in your subconscious, is quietly steering your life? Most of us think of secrets as something we choose to keep, a conscious decision, a deliberate silence. But the truth is, some secrets keep us, not through choice, but through unawareness, through emotional blind spots that shape how we love, how we argue, how we see ourselves, even how we dream. Carl Jung warned that what we leave in the dark doesn't disappear, it becomes the architect of our fate. And one of the most powerful signs that something hidden is in control is when your reactions seem bigger than the moment deserves. Let's break that down. Sign 1. You overreact to criticism. A small comment feels like a personal attack. A suggestion feels like an insult. You feel exposed, like someone has seen something you weren't ready to show. That's not weakness. That's your shadow flinching. Often this kind of overreaction comes from a hidden wound. Maybe you were criticized harshly as a child, or made to feel like nothing you did was ever good enough. So now, even as an adult, you subconsciously hear every critique through the filter of that old pain. Jung called this projection. You're not just reacting to the person in front of you, you're reacting to every unresolved voice from your past speaking through them. Sign 2. You feel shame or guilt without a clear cause. There's a heavy feeling you can't explain, like you're not enough, like you owe the world an apology. But you don't know for what. This kind of internal weight is often a sign of suppressed truth. Maybe something happened in your past that you never truly acknowledged. Maybe you made a mistake you've never forgiven yourself for. Or maybe you internalized guilt that never belonged to you in the first place, like feeling responsible for someone else's pain. And because the story is unfinished, your body keeps telling it through anxiety, through avoidance, through self-sabotage. Sign 3. You avoid certain people or topics without knowing why. Ever notice how you instinctively shut down when certain subjects come up? Or how you change the topic, leave the room, or emotionally check out around certain people? That's often your subconscious putting up a wall. It's not because you're rude. It's because something about that person or that topic touches an unhealed nerve. Jung believed that triggers aren't enemies, they're invitations. Every time you feel discomfort that seems bigger than the moment, it's a signal to pause and ask, what part of me is still carrying this pain? Avoidance is a form of silent storytelling, and the story it tells is, there's something here I'm not ready to face. Sign 4. You repeat toxic relationship patterns. You keep attracting the same kind of partner, or the same emotional dynamic keeps showing up, whether it's abandonment, betrayal, control, or emotional neglect. You think, how does this keep happening? It's not fate, it's familiarity. We're often drawn to people who mirror our unresolved inner world. A secret belief like I'm not lovable or I must earn affection can quietly lead you toward people who reinforce that belief. Until you become aware of it, you're not choosing your relationships. Your shadow is. And the most painful part, you may even defend the dysfunction because somewhere deep down, it feels like home. So what do we do with all this? First, we stop judging these signs. Each one of them is a flashlight, a window into something inside you that's asking for your attention, not your shame. Second, we get curious, not harsh, not dramatic, just curious. Why did I react so strongly? Why does this situation keep repeating? What emotion am I really afraid to feel? When you ask questions like that, you're not just healing, you're awakening. You're beginning to walk Jung's path of integration, where the unconscious becomes conscious and the shadow becomes your ally, not your saboteur. Remember, a secret only controls you when it remains nameless. But the moment you name it, you reclaim your power, because awareness is liberation. So here's the truth. Your deepest secret isn't your flaw, it's not your shame, and it's certainly not your weakness. It's the part of you that's been quietly asking sometimes, even screaming to be healed. It's the forgotten voice in the back of your mind, the emotion you avoid feeling, the memory you never told anyone, not even yourself. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists. What you accept transforms." Let that settle for a moment. The longer we run from our inner truths, the more power they gain. But the moment we face them, we take that power back. Maybe it's a wound you haven't allowed to close. Maybe it's a version of yourself you thought no one could ever love. Or maybe it's just a quiet whisper inside saying, "There's more to me than this mask I wear." And the question you must ask yourself now is this: what have I been hiding from not the world, but from myself? Because that question doesn't just lead to healing, it leads to freedom. Not the kind of freedom that's loud and dramatic, but the kind that feels like coming home. The kind that brings peace in a way external success never could. So if you're on that path, if you're learning to meet the parts of yourself you once tried to forget, then this channel is for you. Subscribe now and walk this journey with us. We explore shadow work, Jungian insight, inner transformation, and the deeper stories your soul has always been trying to tell. And in the comments, share with courage what's one truth you've been afraid to face. Your honesty might just be the light someone else needs to face their own shadow. And remember, what you keep in the dark can either destroy you, or if you bring it into the light, it can set you free.